Welcome to my YouTube channel, Manameni Nalame Mental Health with Anne, a bilingual channel in Tamil and English. Today, in our guest room section, I have a very unique and special guest, Dee Adekugbe, fondly known as Mama Dee within the community. She is the founder and executive director of Ruth's House, a safe haven for families experiencing domestic violence within the African communities in Calgary, Alberta. From a rough and tough background, born in Nigeria, raised in London, England, and currently lives in Canada, Calgary, Alberta. She is a woman who has gone through a lot in life, but still she thrives. Yes, shaken but not broken. With a vast experience in education, in running small businesses, church leadership, and community service, Dee uses her experience and knowledge to support families and individuals experiencing domestic violence, homelessness, suicidal ideation, sexism, racism, and so much more. She's an international speaker and author, an amazing wife and mom to 5 individuals. Come along and join me in conversation with Dee Adekugbe.
Hi, Dee. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are a very special and valued guest. I know you are so busy, so thank you so much for joining me in my guest room section of my mental health channel, Manameni Nalame, a bilingual channel in Tamil and English. And the hope is with your valuable time, you and I would be able to really generate some awareness and understanding of the African community, domestic violence in the community, and how we can support people in the community better.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Dee. So, Dee, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself as a person?
Okay, so my name is Dee Adekugbe. I am a mother of 5 amazing individuals, and I'm originally from Nigeria, born in Nigeria, raised in England, and now living in Canada. And I'm happy to call Canada my home. And I'm someone that's heavily invested in my community and really, loves to impact and give people an opportunity to turn lives around, because I am a product of change. I believe all things are possible for anybody that wants to change.
Absolutely, Dee. Thank you for starting us off on that beautiful concept of change, which I think is universal to all of us, right? And the more we start embracing that and not resisting change, I think our lives just start blossoming.
Yes.
Yeah. Dee, tell us about your path and how that led you to Ruth's House.
So I've been in Canada for 17 years now, and Ruth's House was never something that I imagined or dreamed. But it's something that I have walked through years ago. I am a domestic violence survivor. I spent 6 months in a domestic violence shelter, and I am who I am today because of the resources and the many organizations and communities that stood with me and helped me to transform my life. During the pandemic, and also even just before the pandemic, I am someone that speaks very vocal about domestic violence within my community, within any community. And I'm always speaking out and asking people to get out and get help. And so during the pandemic, I was more vocal than any other time because we were all on lockdown. And for many women, and also including men, the lockdown was not the place to be. Home was not the place to be. It was more of a death trap, a sentence, a prison, more than anything else. And so I was more vocal about domestic violence, and people started reaching out for help. And as a minister in the community, it's one thing to counsel people and say, okay, let's pray and everything's going to be okay, and go home and you will be fine. I felt like I was only helping halfway. I was giving advice and then sending people back to those environments that were not safe. So I really felt I needed to do more than just say, this is, everything's going to be okay, have faith and just go back. And so January this year, we looked into launching Ruth's House. And in February, Ruth's House was birthed as a solution, not just counseling, but a solution to be able to remove families that were not safe and support them in the community to be able to move forward with their lives and to thrive. So that's really how Ruth's House came about, my lived experience, as well as what was happening in my community and my way of responding to that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ruth. That is such a beautiful story. And thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing your personal journey as well. Deeply appreciate it, Ruth. So you come from the African community. I'm
Yes.
Indian, East Indian. In our communities, it goes without saying that we sometimes struggle to understand what domestic violence is. We tend to
Yes.
normalize it. So for our viewers, if you don't mind, Ruth, can you define in very simple words, what domestic violence is?
Domestic violence is a form of control and manipulation over somebody else. It's not just violence. It's actually the actual terminology for is domestic abuse or gender-based, abuse. It can be against a man, a woman, children, elderly, any form of somebody else exercising control and power, domineering over you. That is abuse. And in our community, in our culture, we are focusing on domestic abuse within the family context, within intimate partners, within the home. And so it doesn't have to be physical, it doesn't have to be violent. It's just any form of control, any form of manipulation, so whether it's physical, whether it's financial, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, anyone that exercises control and power over somebody else is abusing that person.
Absolutely. Dee, thank you so much. You remind me, I remember a while ago a friend saying, the moment you try to control another human, you cease being human.
Yes, that's a really powerful way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And you explained that beautifully. So Dee, we're in Canada, and within Canada, here in Calgary as well, we have a lot of African communities.
Yeah.
Right? So within these immigrant African communities, what would you tell me contributes to domestic violence? Like, what are the different factors that create domestic violence within a family?
Thank you so much for that. And there are many contributing factors to domestic violence, domestic abuse, gender-based violence, family violence, whatever terminology we want to use. So what we have noticed in our organization is three things. The economy, lack of employment, coming into Canada as an engineer and having to start all over again and working a minimum wage job, whereby and whereas you've been qualified, you've been working for years in your industry, but because you're here now, that's no longer recognized. So you're having to start all over again. So lack of access to careers and employment is a huge factor in domestic violence. Another one is lack of community support. As immigrants, we come from community, families living together. Everything we do is in a communal, environment, whether it's cooking, whether it's, families that live together. We have 3-4 generations living together. Our whole lives back home are, is surrounded by community. So when you now come to Canada or any other Western society, it's more of an isolated community, environment. It's more of, me, myself, and I, people are they're isolated. There's no community. There isn't that support system. So when a family with young children, when they leave, Africa or wherever country they will live in, and they leave behind their entire support system, and they come into Canada, and they encounter isolation. they encounter challenges. They can get a job. They're struggling with with the weather as well. They're struggling with so many, challenges, and it leads to violence. Rather than couples turning to each other, embracing each other, and working through all these challenges, what you're finding is they're turning against each other, and they're taking out the frustration on each other. And that is, couples that never fought or never had any issues with domestic violence back home, all of a sudden it's an issue here because of the environment that they find themselves in, financial challenges, employment challenges, community challenges. Those are, the three main things that I would say really enhances family disputes and family crisis.
Absolutely, Dee. And yeah, that is a story that I think if you're an immigrant, you understand. You don't really get to talk about it. And often there is a lack of understanding in the larger Canadian society about this. And I don't think people really want to go into it, right? It's like, oh, you're an immigrant, you're doing well, you must be lucky to be here. Not that we aren't. There definitely are a lot that we benefit from this beautiful society, but the challenges are what we need to focus on so that we can get better and live actually the healthy lives that we came here to live.
Yes.
Thank you, Dee. So, Dee, what would you say then? Do systems and things like you and I know that there is a social problem here, which is racism, right? And then there is systemic oppression. And then the lack of understanding of different ethnic cultures. When talking to you, we're focusing especially on the African community, which includes so many diverse different countries within the African continent. How does racism and systemic oppression make it harder for people within these communities to even talk about the domestic violence they may face and seek help and make this a more complex issue?
Definitely, systemic racism and just lack of education, lack of understanding, really creates barriers for immigrants who are looking for support to, when they're encountering domestic violence in their home. It just makes it more complex because you have to deal with language barriers. You're trying to get help and just trying to just explain what you're going through. If the service provider that is coming to help you does not understand your language, the translators are not available, it's going to make it more challenging for you to get the help that you want. And what happens is, just trying to communicate is frustrating without having to, encounter language barriers, any form of communication, And so what happens is you're just like, I'm done. I can't even be bothered. I can't explain what I'm saying. I can't articulate it. So that's a barrier for immigrants, when that are going through domestic violence. Another barrier is, where, just lack of education within the system on how to address domestic violence in an immigrant home. I always, one thing I always tell people is one size doesn't fit all. I don't know if you've ever bought an outfit or glove or something and it says one size fits all. That is such a myth because it's a lie, and when agencies or authorities are trying to help families in crisis and they're going with standard protocols that works in the Western world, but but it's not culturally sensitive, towards us, it's going to cause a problem.
Totally.
It's going to cause a problem, and it's going to prevent, our communities speaking out and asking for help. We are a community whereby honor, respect is highly valuable. So when you want to go into a family and there's issues there, you gotta know how to approach that family. You can't just go with the Western mindset.
Right.
So lack of cultural education is a big piece in domestic violence, and and it just creates more problems for us, and it just really just it doesn't allow the issues to be, to be addressed in the immigrant home.
Absolutely. Thank you for that answer, because that really, when you were saying that, right, this concept of honor and respect, right, even in my community, it's about saving face. We are raised and oriented to save face no matter what. You do not defame the family. So for one to leave an abusive situation, it is very hard within a collective society, right? Because it's pretty much you're losing your identity. You might run the risk of losing all you have in terms of community, which leads to a lot of isolation. And embracing that person, service providers, embracing that person with that understanding, I think is really helpful, right, to help them move forward.